come out of recess.
Welcome to the May 3rd meeting of the Finance Committee. Over to the Board of Selectmen.
Good evening. The Board of Selectmen will, based on a motion to take a motion to come out of recess.
I'll make a motion that we come out of recess.
Second.
Aye.
Yeah.
Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States, to the republic for which it stands,
one
one
nation.
nation, under God, indivisible.
For some housekeeping, our normal clerk is on Zoom tonight. Catherine, do you want the minutes done here, or will you be able to?
I can do them.
Okay. We'll jump right in. Board of Health. The mic, you want the mic up on the?
Yeah. The Board of Health. Our chairwoman is not able to be here tonight. Our newest board member is on Zoom right now, Nicole Mello. So I'm here to present the budget.
Okay.
So where do you want to start?
We're starting on 510, regulations and inspections.
Okay, so everything there was, I think, pretty straightforward. The only increase you're seeing is in my line, and that's because I got the raise at the fall town meeting with the increase in hours. But my raise at this point is still the 2.5% everybody else is getting. It just looks like more here because of the additional hours over last year's budget. But I think everything else is right where it needs to be.
Who in this department has a uniform allowance?
Hey,
You? Are you union?
no.
No. That was something negotiated into your contract?
I don't have a contract.
Okay, but you have a uniform allowance?
Yes.
Okay.
Since the day I got here, yeah.
So this is one thing that we're trying to really clean up as we go forward. We have a lot of we have non-union department employees, and we have non-union departmental heads. One of the things that have been really caught attention over the last year is the fact that we don't have uniform policies. In terms of a non-union employment policy, to really level set these and provide uniform consistency, actually across the board. And this is a goal of mine. This is a goal of mine and the selectmen to really address and have a discussion with our non-union employees to do so we can really lay out the perimeters of a lot of these type of things, because as the health agent mentioned, he does for very good reason, you have a uniform allowance, but then, so there are other non-union employees who do similar in the field work to the health agent, and they have a different type of an allowance. So we want to hopefully in the next year, 8 to 10 months actually, really level set that and have an across the board way of dealing with those things.
But
Health agents, it's plural. How many health agents do we have?
Well, in that budget line, it's only me. But there are 6 of us. And Alice Susie used to get $250 out of that line, but that's obviously not happening at this point. But right now, I'm the only one in that budget.
Performing the duties, or are there other people?
There are other people that are named as health agents so that they can do, like, for example, burial permits is the purview of the Board of Health. We've delegated that to the town clerk. So in order to do that, he need to be named an agent of the Board of Health in order to do that. That's an example of.
What I'm looking for, okay, thank you.
It'd only be 5 of us now, because I think Alice isn't there anymore, so it might only be 5.
Including yourself.
what?
Um, Increase. And if that's reflected on the warrant, you're gonna have a tough time getting it by. The voters, I believe, at the special town meeting, voted an increase to Mr. Pillen. Fiscal '23 budget, the increase he's getting.
Would have.
It's 2.5 now.
You understand?
Yeah. I mean, for other positions that have had this issue where maybe they've gotten a raise at special, this has been similar to how it's been shown in the past, but
Is there any way we can explain that? So,
yeah.
Yes.
I would say even before the vote, that should be discussed, because you'll answer the question before it's asked.
yes. Okay, thank you.
So yeah, like, what will actually appear in the warrant is the final FY '22 appropriation. Oh, and then the proposed FY '23 appropriation. So the final FY '22 appropriation includes the special town meeting number as well.
Thank you.
So the warrant then will show just that 2.5%.
Just incremental, okay.
It's,
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, but our spreadsheets, that's typically the way it would show that.
Did you guys get this? I'll get this.
No.
Yeah, it's sent last week. It did provide that backup product.
Okay.
We'll just make the discussion easier. So, I can go make copies if. I can just run downstairs and make some copies.
I don't have it.
I'd appreciate it, thank you.
Thank you. All getting that last week. I've got everything I had.
Right, I didn't see it
There
at
was
all.
roughly 20 pages that Mike had sent out.
Beginning of last week, I would have said. But
He's giving us a couple.
Okay.
it would have been budget backup.
It's got the Borges.
Oh, okay, you know what, I think I did see
I
that.
took a board this one.
It's part of that packet.
Yeah.
What the hell?
As you left, we found it.
That's okay.
Okay.
I'm happy to take a copy right there.
Thank you.
Thank you for your help.
Yes.
Do you see continued need for overtime going forward?
Though $1,000 isn't enough, in my opinion. It's never enough. every week I get dragged to a different meeting for something. Like this weekend, I got to work Saturday because we've got 2 events going on. There's never enough time. I can't do the job in the amount of time, but we've stated that over and over and over again. So that's why we went to the 35 hours, but we're still recovering from COVID. We've got a lot of backlog in the office, so I would love to see that number go higher, but I understand obviously the nature of the fiscal. Last year, fortunately, CARES is going to be paying for a lot of the overtime that I did get, so. Still, I've already exhausted the account a couple months ago, so.
Questions on regulations and inspections, 510?
One question, just, I'm not familiar. What does the animal inspector do that are,
So animal control deals with things like, the loose dogs and all that. Animal inspector is barns. You get chickens, horses, cows, whatever, and she inspects those. The permits come through this office and we process them, and then she does the inspections for it
and how often are they inspected?
annually.
Okay.
So this, so just like a really quick update on that as well. Like when we, so what we propose to do like in this year's budget, because of the salary update that has been proposed for the ACO, who happens to be the same person who, the same employee as the animal inspector. The updated proposed salary for the ACO includes the animal inspector funds as well. That $3,858 to $3,858 is included in her updated total salary in the ACO line item, and that's how we were able to, in the TA recommendations and the selectmen recommendations, zero out the recommendation for that in the Board of Health budget.
So this line's really being moved over to animal control?
The line is still there, like in case there ever becomes a point in time where the ACO is not the animal inspector.
Yep.
But the whole position is being funded in the
Okay.
ACO budget.
Okay.
The animal inspector always has to fall under the Board of Health by state law, so.
Okay.
Catherine, any questions?
Nope, all set. Thank you.
Assuming Robert does not. We move on to 519, administration.
Yep, Pete, the audio's cutting in and out, so.
You hear me now?
Yep.
Yep.
519.
So there's nothing here except the standard 2.5% for the office manager. Everything else, I believe, is, the Board of Health members, also the 2.5% raise for them. Or 2%, sorry, 2% raise.
Stipend?
Stipend, yep.
And how many members there?
3. You can say hi now, Nicole.
Hello, I'm very sorry that I couldn't be here tonight. I apologize.
She's our newest one, started yesterday, so
Okay.
she didn't feel prepared enough to speak on the budget. So. It's 1 chairman and 2 members.
Okay, thank you.
So my only comment on this is that again, the stipend increase, the office manager's in line with a 2% increase. But stipends looking at a 2.5%. So we'll have to look at that.
Frozen for a number of years, and we're still, in general, of that opinion. Obviously, we haven't made any formal decision.
Oh, no, I understand that. Just the Board of Health's trying to get in line. When we split with the selectmen 5 years ago, it was said the salary was going to be 5,000, and then it got cut to 4,600. We were trying to get back to where they said we were going to be 5 years ago. So that's why we keep putting in for a little bit of a raise to get there.
Yeah, and over that same time, the Board of Selectmen have not had an increase either.
But they're maxed out at the 5,000, so.
Yeah, and the reason for that was that the Board of Selectmen would be the highest paid position in the town.
About the stipend.
Sure.
So if the Board of Selectmen come up with a policy, which is what I think the FinCom is seeking, would they be willing to address this at the special town meeting, or do you want us to, obviously we have to look at our finances in November. Wait till the annual town meeting.
I mean, just speaking for myself, I would say more of an annual than a special, mainly because, as you know, just the volume is a lot greater at the annual than at special, but that's just me.
I would have to agree.
No, I agree.
I don't agree.
What would you like to say, Mr. Woods?
Do you want them to come up?
No.
And as you know, I normally come to all the finance committee meetings for the last, 20 years. I missed the last few because I was in quarantine. On top of this, and the workload for the planning board has increased. You want me to come?
Yeah, people are saying they can't hear you.
If you want, you can wait until I do the sewer.
Oh, come on, that's fine.
Robert Woods, planning board member, sewer commissioner, resident, 158 Chase Street. And no board or committee has gotten a 2% or any type of a stipend increase for the past 5 years. And nobody's really complained about that. But if you take a look around and look at everybody's budget and see some of the astronomical pay raises that some of these employees are getting, and I'm not going to point fingers, you know who they are. And Mr. Rendon, doing a fine job, always has. But he commented the other night about how much money the difference would be between Bristol Plymouth High School, whether or not it was going to be repair or a new building. We're talking like $100 million more. And to him, that was quite okay. But to nickel and dime the smallest budgets in the entire town is ridiculous, in my opinion. I mean, for instance, on the sewer, and we have it broken down here. Additional $43.36 per member, so there's 3 members. We're only talking chicken scratch. So why is it that the finance committee historically has picked on the smallest budgets? Where you got, I don't know if these are school people or not, but they look like school people. Their budgets are huge. Nobody ever questions anything they want. So you're just talking about the smallest people in this community that are willing to give a little bit of time. They don't even get a pat on the back, right? The only time you hear anybody say anything is like, well, Mr. Ferry, everybody loves Mr. Ferry. Or Alice Souza, right? Everybody loved Alice Souza. But who else do they love? Huh? You love anybody else, Ken? He loves his wife and family. I love my wife and family too. And for 43 cents or dollars, I mean, I could probably take her to Burger King. That's all I have. So please consider giving a lousy 2% to your stipend employees. You know, I'm not saying do it every year, but you know, this is a good year. Look at the economy with the economy today, $43 is not gonna buy you a lot. Oh, home heating oil is over $6 a gallon now. You know, probably not enough to run my water heater. That's all I got. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, you've asked that the Board of Selectmen come up with a policy, and we will come up with a policy.
Okay,
Have it ready for the next budget
okay, great.
for next year. We've asked that for a couple of years now, and we haven't acted.
I think I need to add to that.
Within this department, professional and technical, what would be professional and technical in the
Legal.
legal?
We need legal help for things.
Okay.
When we go to evict somebody, that kind of stuff, so. Yep. If you're gonna ask about the office manager's overtime line, I'm gonna tell you the same thing as mine. The last couple of years, we've used an intern for like 100 hours a year to deal with our emergency preparedness, and I understand that's been taken out of the budget, so that's gonna mean that we're gonna have to do more of that work, so there's just too much work to be done, so, but
What's your opinion of unpaid interns?
they're less paid, unpaid, it doesn't matter to me, as long as they wanna come here and.
Work and get something good on the resume and.
Yep.
Okay. Anyone, any questions on?
Nope.
Robert, Catherine, any questions on 519?
All set.
Hope I'm good.
Be easy to. So 433 is, got a lot going on there. I'll refer you to the explanation of benefits that we handed out, because that kind of spells it out. But basically, every one of the ones in this category falls under the category of the price of trash disposal is skyrocketing. There's a new owner of NER, and in the first day, they raised the prices of everything by $30 a ton. Just, that's the way it is. We're locked in at CMAS for rates, but the tonnages are going up because everybody's working from home now. So now we're seeing increased volume. So we're still playing a little bit of catch up with the budget, but that leads us into, we need more money for trash bags because we're selling more of them. The bulky, the trash for the bulky and the recycling, everything is just higher. And these numbers that are basing them on predictions based on what we've had for volumes over the last couple of years and what we anticipate costs are going to be. We do have an extension on Borges's contract, which the Board of Health has said they want to do it for a 3-year extension. We got to get it to the selectmen, but his price has gone up significantly because fuel and everything costs more. You'll see top one there. We also have a fuel charge estimate of $20,000 for next year is what we figure it's going to be. So the hazmat disposal, we like to have a household hazardous waste day every year. But that event costs about $11,000. So with $6,000 in the budget, we can't have one. So we got to go to town meeting to get a special article, and it's just, it'd be nice if it was in the budget so we could plan it every year. Because this year we didn't get the money till November, and the entire spring was already booked for everybody. So we're always playing catch up. So that's why that's there.
That $11,000 amount, does that depend on how much hazardous waste is brought in?
It does. But it's the setup cost for the day is like $6,000 or $8,000 just to get the bodies here and have them set up and take it all away. And then there is a volume charge with it.
Okay.
The only other one that's in here that's weird is the monitor of testing wells is $5,000. So every year we have to monitor and inspect the transfer station on Tremont Street. Well, we have a couple other landfills in town that periodically we have to do an inspection on them to make sure the fences are up and the signs are up and that kind of thing. And there's no, animals digging or whatever. And this year it's up for the Hart Street landfill, which I know has been closed for a really long time, but it's time to do an inspection. So. Hope that helps a lot, but obviously ask away.
How often does that one get done? Any outside of the main
Yeah, we're at like every 10 years now.
years? Okay.
Yeah, the further out you go, the further apart the inspections get.
Okay.
Just like at the transfer station now, we're testing gas and water like 2 to 4 times a year, and as time goes on, that'll drop to once a year, so.
Okay. One question that I've got is, I mean, on things like disposals of mattresses and box springs, Borges is proposing $50 a piece.
Mhm.
What do we charge?
15.
15. Why do we lose money?
Yeah.
Well, this is a conversation for the Solid Waste Committee, which we're trying to get formed, because the problem is if we want to charge $50 for a mattress to bring it in, how many mattresses are going to end up on the side of the road, or people are going to burn them? So there's a thing there. The $15 was covering the cost last year. This year it's not. As of November 1st, there's an entire ban on them, and we are no longer allowed to put them in the trash. So we're going to have to recycle them, which means we got to buy a dumpster, which is part of the capital outlay committee thing, to get a dumpster so that we can put the mattresses in if we choose to recycle them. Or we can shut it down and say we're not taking any more mattresses. You can go to New Bedford and it costs $100 to get rid of a mattress at New Bedford if you do it personally. This is why trash is a real big problem. The last few years have turned into a nightmare for trash.
And maybe a question for another time, but there are other places that you can dispose of mattresses. Do you know if those costs are similar?
Again, New Bedford is the closest one, and it's $100 for a mattress.
I'm thinking of one in Taunton.
I'm not familiar with that facility.
Okay.
But again, the price is jumping. Like right now, 50, 60, 100 is the range for disposing of a mattress. But again, November 1st, it's a different game. You have to recycle the mattresses. So you have to disassemble them and send the fabric to textile recycling, the metal to metal, and then the wood is wood. And so it's a different game. And of course, mattresses now, they're not all made out of wood and box springs. They come in a little cardboard box and you open it and it turns into a mattress. So the game is changing on us faster than we can keep up. Which is why I think the Solid Waste Committee is going to spend a lot of time delving into every one of these: propane tanks, tires, televisions, you name it. So
Solid Waste Committee be looking at things like this also, the contracts,
I don't know if they're going to get that far, but presumably that's going to be part of it, because Borges's contract, again, we got a 3-year extension. CMAS runs out in 4 years. There's a new owner of CMAS, and like the city of Taunton has been dumping in their landfill. They just switched over to CMAS, and they're paying like 50% more than we're paying because they're a new client. And CMAS is booked right now, and the trash is piled up outside the doors because they can't get it in. They can't burn it fast enough. There's too much trash. So the state's got an issue to deal with, which dumps the issue on us. For example, recycling glass. It's great, everybody wants to recycle glass, but now you got 20 mountains the size of Mount Everest of glass and nobody wants it. So what do you do? Beyond me, so.
we pay the same per ton for trash and recycling?
No.
Different price?
Yes,
Do you know what the difference is?
I do.
Okay. What's the difference per ton for trash versus recycling?
I'd rather not get into it.
Okay, let me ask it this way. Have you got, has the waste collection and disposal, this, as you would know, I mean, the costs have been jumping.
Let me answer it this way for you. 4 years ago, it was recycling cost less than trash. Now it costs more than trash. And I think that's about all I want to say at this point in time.
Okay.
But again, this is part of it because you get mountains of glass that nobody wants it. So now you have a waste product instead of a reusable product. And so it's driving the price up. China used to take most of it in the SWORD program. I don't know what SWORD stands for, solid waste something or other. And they stopped taking America's recycling because it's too dirty. So this brings us to, we have to start our recycling IQ program where we hire a bunch of people and they go recycle bin by recycle bin around town and pull stuff out. And if it's like a peanut butter jar's got peanut butter, you put a sticker on it, you write why it's being, and you leave it on their front lawn. So when they come home and they find it, they know why. And then the next week they don't put it out. It goes in the trash. We got to go door to door and do that for several months. Again, I don't have the time for that. We got to hire people to do that. There are grants for it, but that's part of the program to get our recycling cleaner so that it's more marketable.
And to clean that peanut butter, now we need
Throw it
to
in the trash.
waste the water and
Throw it in the trash.
so we've.
Mayonnaise, yep, so.
As I look at the salary of the landfill attendant is not consistent with what we'll be giving 7%. I thought we were going to consistently go with 2 point.
Yeah, so what happened was at some point a few years ago, I don't know how it happened, but in the budget, there was some number that was off. And so his salary's been increasing, but we didn't need to increase the budget for it. So I can't explain it, but I will. So he is getting his 2.5% raise. But as a general aside, the man is not paid enough, or the woman, whoever is doing the job, because $17 an hour to do that for, give up your Saturday, it's not worth it to me. I think it needs to be at least $20 an hour. I mean, I know you're only talking like $1,000 a year to make it happen, and I know we're talking about a $30, $43 raise for planning board members, but I don't think he's paid enough for what he has to deal with and put up with and process and everything else. But that's just an aside. So I know nobody's getting more than a 2.5, so we'll leave it at that. But he is getting a 2.5% raise. Yeah, that's just, there's something wrong in the budget a few years ago, and I don't know where it went wrong. It's before Janelle's time, so she can't answer the question, but the number's just been off for years.
So his salary on here is right or wrong?
His salary is right, but the budget last year had like $500 extra in it, so when we give him the raise,
Okay,
it was playing catch up from years past. I don't know how it happened.
all right, thanks.
I think it had something to do with backup attendance and stuff like that, and that was lumped into I don't know, but then they pulled it out to a different line. So.
Okay.
I know it's a big increase on the line. I get it. I wish I could control the price of trash and all that, but we're stuck, and we don't want to get rid of Borges. He's been excellent to the town. His customer service is amazing, and if anybody wants proof of that, we got letters and all sorts of stuff we received from people. You go to these big companies, we're going to be getting calls every day dealing with it. Borges, we get a call, and immediately he goes and takes care of it. So most of the calls, nobody ever hears about. It doesn't hit Facebook or anything like that. So you see these other towns that have these big corporations that go by, and it's a lot more levels of hierarchy in the companies to get things done. So we are very happy with Borges.
Where recycling is now exceeding the cost of regular, and I know that the last round, or it might have been 2 years ago with Tom, the question had come up as to whether or not recycling should be every week or should be back.
Yeah, so we did look at that when we put it out 3 years ago, and whether you do it weekly or bi-weekly, you're putting out the same amount of recycling. So the truck would come to town, do half the route and be full with the truck, have to go dump it, and then come back and do the other half of the route. So it was like twice as many trips in a day, so it ends up being the same price whether you did it weekly or bi-weekly. So that's why we left it with
So
weekly.
then people would continue to recycle the same amount of.
Assuming, yes. Again, solid waste committee can delve into it, but again, the bids we got from the 3 companies, all is the same for weekly or bi-weekly.
Right, that's a habit.
Yeah. It's a long way to go to New Bedford to get rid of it, so. And then you get the fuel surcharge thrown in and all the rest of it, so.
The solid waste committee, do we know who's on that at this point?
I'll defer to the selectmen for that.
Do we have anyone on that committee?
They just voted about 3 weeks ago to form the solid waste committee. They haven't determined a membership yet.
Okay.
Why do you want to be on it? The shot.
One of the things in the meantime, the Board of Health does have the ability to set the rates like for the mattresses and of the short of the like solid waste committee. So that responsibility will always lie with the Board of Health. So like they wouldn't have the ability to do that.
Unless some other department wants to take over running the transfer station, that's fine with us.
So the other place where I was going was on Winthrop Street in Taunton, and the price is at least $50 also, so.
They say there's a new owner of that like a month ago, and
Yeah.
by June, their prices are going up like $30 a ton for stuff,
So at $50, we might still be cheaper then.
And a lot of places are gonna stop taking mattresses. It's too difficult. Where it was trash before, it's not anymore, so.
So is there a point where certain things that we can't take at the transfer station too?
Yes, but again, The fear is that if you don't take certain things, where are they going to go? Are you going to drive to New Bedford to get rid of your mattress for $100?
My guess is they'll probably end up like the contractor bags that I'm seeing on Tremont Street as it is.
So it's a balance between price and that, which is why, again, we wanted a solid waste committee to spend some time talking about this, because my ideas may not be the same as yours or one of the selectmen's or whatever, so we need to make sure we're encompassing all the town people and their needs. You know, do you get rid of curbside collection entirely and just have everybody bring it to the transfer station? You know, these are some big issues, so. And if you stop recycling, where's that gonna take you, you know? So there's a lot of repercussions to all of our actions. But we have already stopped taking propane tanks because now you're dealing with the gas in the tanks, and it was getting difficult to get rid of those because people had to knock the valve off and stuff, so. But.
Robert, Catherine, anything free on the 433?
No.
I do not.
Anything else on 433?
No.
No.
I think that's it for me, right?
That's it for you, unless you want to speak for the schools.
I'd love to. I will say this about the schools. We, as the Board of Health, have a great relationship with the schools. All levels of hierarchy over there, and the nurses have been fantastic through COVID. Couldn't have done it without their help, but all levels of administration have been very cooperative with us, and it's a great relationship. And when I talk to other Board of Healths, they don't have that relationship with the schools, and it makes it really difficult for them. So I do thank the schools for all the work that they do to maintain that. So, but other than that, have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
How's that for a lead-in? Sure. Did you get there, Bridget? Okay, good.
How are you?
How are you?
Doing well, thank you. Just if I would be remiss if I didn't welcome Mr. Karen to the board. We had an opportunity to talk at one point on your radio station.
That was a couple years ago.
A few years ago now, absolutely. So welcome, of course, to this fine town. And I know you've been here for a while, but that's great. And also, I'd be remiss if I didn't acknowledge a good friend of mine, a colleague, Alex Menglaze from Bristol, Plymouth, because some of what I have to share with you folks is something that Alex and I have spoken about quite often. It was, I believe, 8 years ago that Dr. Gross and Alex were introducing themselves to me, the new superintendent of Dayton Rehoboth. And what Dr. Gross explained to me very, very clearly, in Dr. Gross' way, for those of you who knew Dr. Gross, who's passed away, of course, he shared with me the philosophy of Bristol Plymouth. And the philosophy of Bristol Plymouth was that is an opportunity for Dayton Rehoboth kids. And Bristol Aggie as well. I forgot the gentleman's name who was there before Kevin and Adele. Steve Dempsey? Yes, Steve Dempsey as well. And what they shared with me was this. They said to me that Dayton Rehoboth students should have an opportunity to go to Bristol Plymouth and to Bristol Aggie. Because prior to me coming on board, there was this, like a roadblock that we're in competition. DR is in competition with Bristol Plymouth and Bristol Aggie. So as I got more familiar with the district, I came to the realization that Dr. Gross and Steve Dempsey were correct, that Bristol Plymouth and Bristol Aggie and DR all working together to create opportunities for our kids, the Dayton Rehoboth kids. So then there was this shift where there was no more battling about, having Bristol Plymouth and Bristol Aggie come into our schools to work and to show the kids, what opportunities there were. But then we had to step up what we needed to do as well. That we also have the comprehensive school, which is the Chapter 74 programs, but in no way, shape, or form would we compete with the technical schools? That just wasn't going to happen. So there was a shift, not so much at the Beckwith School, but more at Dayton Middle School, which has impacted, over the years, I've always had these robust discussions with Ed Schwartz about our kids are leaving DR to go to Bristol Plymouth. And I said to Ed all the time was, and that's a bad thing? Is that something that's bad? And the question, it wasn't so much bad, but the impact to your budget was something that needed to be looked at, obviously. So what happened was this. The Beckwith Middle School kids who decided to go to Bristol Plymouth, that, I don't, and Alex can correct me, and Karen, that was my next guess. So, I mean, they can correct me if I'm wrong, but the Rehoboth numbers to go to BP haven't really increased exponentially over the years. There's always been a core group of kids from Beckwith Middle School that would go to Bristol Plymouth, and a very small percentage, just like in Dayton, going to Bristol Aggie. Not a lot of kids, but some kids. Point being is this. The Dayton side of the district, we saw an increase. Typically, I think it was like 11, 12 kids from Dayton average to go to Bristol Plymouth. Then it ballooned to about 40, in the 40 range. And that happened, it coincided with the override in Rehoboth that we had to have. I'll stay out of that piece there. I promise, Mike, that I will not politicize anything tonight, just keeping it above board. But nevertheless, what happened in Dayton was that there was a consternation of the budget. There was always a problem with the budget, not the Dayton side of the budget, it was the Rehoboth side of the budget. We had to reduce this, we had to cut this. There was always a constant battle when it came to the budget. On the Dayton side, you folks, and the main reason why I'm here tonight is to share some of these thoughts with you, but also to thank you, because my 8 years here in Dayton, Rehoboth has been very, very pleasurable. We've had robust discussions, no doubt about it. We have been, basically give a rationale for what we need, and you folks have been there. You've been there every single year that I've been superintendent. And this year, and we try to make it manageable, nothing, too outlandish, because the two overriding arching goals for our district, our school district, number one is student achievement. No one can push back on that one. But the second overarching goal that I've instilled in my administrators for 8 years is that whatever budget we decide on, we have to make sure the sustainability of our two towns is also in the discussion. And that's what we've tried to do over the 8 years. So with Bristol Plymouth being an opportunity for our dying kids, you've seen a spike in that. And people have always said that, what are you doing at DR? Why aren't you keeping the kids? Why are they leaving the high school? They're not leaving the high school. They're not getting to the high school. They're making a decision to go to BP and BA. Now, mind you, there are other places that our Rehoboth kids go to because they're about 20 minutes from Providence. So you see a lot of private schools, but in my time frame, they are leaving or they're not going to DR, not because of DR, they're going to these private schools in Providence because it is a situation, it's a family thing. So if your father went to Providence Country Day, the kid's going to Providence Country Day. If the father went to LaSalle or the mother went to LaSalle, that's where they're going. Then you look at the religious side of things, which is fine. Bishop Fian is a big piece of that as well. That's on the Rehoboth side. 8th graders decided making those choices. Are there bumps in the road at DR? Absolutely. Are there situations at the two middle schools that people want to, get a different kind of education? Absolutely. There's no question about that. But if you take our academic program, you take our Chapter 74 program, you take our AP classes, you take our athletic program as well, it is the best education, in my estimation, under those circumstances. However, If you decide to send your child to Bristol Plymouth, Bristol Aggie, or you homeschool your child, those are opportunities for our kids. And what we've also seen over the years, people talk about enrollment, the enrollment, they're not staying, they're not here. You have to do an analysis on the birth rate. Over the years, it has dropped significantly. Over the past 2 years, the predominant cause of kids not being in school, COVID-19. Some of them have decided to stay out, to continue to homeschool their children, or go to a private school. Those are all things that have been happening, at our level. But I will tell you this, just to finalize my thoughts for you, if you don't mind, is that I had an opportunity this afternoon, which to me was pretty cool. And the opportunity is this. Through the great work of Mr. Baxter and the business office at Dayton Rehoboth Regional School District, we are in the best financial shape we've been in my 8 years. And I'll tell you why. Today, what I shared with a group of kids, and where it took place at 3 o'clock this afternoon, and this is one of the perks of being the superintendent, that you can actually interrupt the track kids from running. And they didn't know what was about to happen. So I had Mr. Kelly, Doug Kelly, he's our Dean of Student Activities and Athletics. I asked him at 3 o'clock, could you gather the track kids on our track? Because I'd like to make an announcement. And the announcement was very simplistic. Hopefully this Thursday, the Cape Cod Islands, our vendor, will begin to replace our track. Full-fledged track to the cost of about $390,000, $400,000, just under $400,000. No cost to the taxpayers of Dayton and Rehoboth. If you recall, we thought of a plan before was to take our E&D money once it was certified and to see if we could increase the 22 budget, which would still be no increase to the two towns. But as Rob will share with you, we are still not certified on our E&D. And the impact, the good news for Dayton is that you folks, your town meeting is first week of June or thereabouts. So hopefully we should be in a good place. So we're looking at possibly some sort of significant turn back. And that's because of the COVID year. There was a lot of savings that we didn't need to follow through on, obviously. The school, the district will obviously have 5%. And I'd be remiss also if I didn't mention our relationship with Mike Mullen. Month after month, the first Monday of every month, we meet, Mike, myself, and Rob. And we've been doing that since Mike's been on board. I did it before Mike came on with Mallory as well. Prior to Mallory, I used to meet with members of the Board of Selectmen. Not sure how we pulled this off because all three showed up for the meeting, but that's okay. It's Nancy was in charge of some of that, so we always had an opportunity to see what was happening in Dayton. And the whole purpose of that was very simple. What are the needs of the town? What are the needs of the school? How can we meet and form common ground? And that's why we've been successful. Not we as DER, but we as the Dayton folks. We've always had a chance to meet, welcome also to Sue, come to think of it. Yep. Right, Sue was on the school committee when I first became superintendent. And you were thinking you were going to get appointed the last time I saw you, and sure enough, it came true. Good for you. But bottom line is this. We're here tonight to thank you. We're here tonight to answer any questions about the upcoming assessment, the town meeting. Rob is going to walk you through whatever it is that you folks need, answer any of your questions tonight. And with that in mind, thank you for listening, and Mr. Baxter.
Thank you very
You're
much.
welcome.
Notes. Hey, folks, well, again, thank you, Dr. Razor. Yeah. And thanks to the Board of Selectmen and to the Finance Committee. And, again, to Mr. Mullen, I really appreciate and I'm grateful for the opportunity. I can't, emphasize what Doc said about the atmosphere of teamwork between the town and the district, and makes my job you're much more pleasant and much more productive, and I appreciate it. So with your permission, Mr. Chair, I'd like to take you through, thought I would provide you with an update of our fiscal 22, then an update on where the assessment stands, if you will, for the fiscal 23, and then a small, short discussion on the warrant article that's recommended for the feasibility study for the enrollment issue at the school campus. So anyway, so for fiscal 22, so again, I feel sometimes like I'm in a time machine because I've got one leg in fiscal 21, another foot in fiscal 22, and a third one in fiscal 23. So I'll take you through. So our fiscal 21, as Doc mentioned, our audit is substantially complete. And we anticipate having, and I was just on the phone with our auditors, accountants, and I've been going back and forth all day with DLS, which would be the Department of Revenue, and with DESI, Department of Education. And we anticipate having all of our paperwork in complete the week ending May 20th. And we anticipate having our E&D, our excess certified shortly after that. As Doc mentioned, we anticipate having a significant turn back to the town. After that, we mentioned to the school committee, so this is something that was presented to the school committee, that the excess is the result of, this is excess from fiscal 21 rolling into fiscal 22, is the result of significant savings or avoided expenses, mostly as a result of COVID and the reduced operations in fiscal 20 and fiscal 21. So that said, we're expecting, again, this is not news, but we're expecting somewhere in the neighborhood of about $1 million turn back to Dayton. That would be a check to the town. I'm telling you that now so that, again, as we roll through to the last item that I'd like to get to, just to kind of put a placeholder on that. So fiscal 22, the current year, we are also experiencing favorable fiscal performance of budget to actual, and we were projecting a small excess, and through and with the approval of the school committee, we have asked for some funds to be transferred, and we use the funds, as Doc mentioned, for the track replacement. So we were able to take that from this year's budget. And also, as we go through, this is kind of leading into fiscal 23, we transferred $70,000 to address the safety concerns and to rework the auditorium curtains, which was built into as a part of the built into the fiscal 23 assessment as a capital request. And so now we're able to remove that. So kind of stepping into the fiscal 23 budget, if we remove that capital request, plus the House Ways and Means Committee had recommended, and it was approved by the House, a $30 per student increase in state aid, which for the district amounts to a little over $78,000. So, which would be a total reduction in the overall assessment of about $150,000, right? The 70 plus the 78, it's almost.
Well, you're right there. Could you tell us, so what is the reimbursement per student?
Well, it's not reimbursement, it's.
Right, the funding that comes into the district per student.
For that line, they normally tally $30 per student, they're doubling to $60 per student. If you're looking at the total, I mean, I could give you an average, but the Chapter 70 aid is based on number of students per grade and blah, 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 and that I'd have to write down for you, but that line item was typically $30 per student, and one time, they're not promising this, it's not part of their maintenance of effort, they've increased it to $30 per student. From 30 to 60, yes. So that results in an overall reduction in the assessment to the towns by about $150,000, which for the Dayton portion of that is a reduction of about $60,000 in the assessment as it stands right now. And so overall, I think we're looking at is it like a 2.2, or I should have written down 2.2 or 2.8% increase. 2.5, okay. It's between from fiscal 22 to fiscal 23 proposed. And then finally, so that kind of sets the stage to talk about the last item. I'm anticipating the question, and this is regarding the warrant article request for the $150,000 for the feasibility study to address the overcrowding, potential overcrowding at the Dayton campus. And again, I mentioned that this year there'd be a turn back to the towns. And again, the thought is that, yes, we have a lot of work to do between now and by the time we would cut a check for a feasibility study. But the way it works, right, the funds would be available through this turn back. And so we are respectfully requesting, and we're asking for the article to be included, because again, although we have a lot of work to do, we believe it's prudent to request the funds now and earmark them, kind of set the stage so that they'll be there ready when we get through the first two modules, if you will, that MSBA requires. So I think that's those are my comments, and I'm happy to address any questions.
I guess the first question I have regarding the feasibility study, where it's all at the Dayton campus. It's going to be a special, we haven't seen the special articles yet, so.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. Yeah.
It's going to be an article on,
Yes.
okay,
So yes, it is already on the warrant. That
Okay.
proposed by the school committee as an article.
okay. And you said the 21 audit, just about done.
Yes.
Are you expecting any significant findings or any management type?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So this year, in the last several months, we have wrapped up fiscal 19, fiscal 20 audit, and now we're completing the fiscal 21 audit. So just in the last few months, the findings, there were findings, again, from prior year's audits, but we haven't had a lot of time to work. I like just notified. So I will say, and Dr. Azar can attest to this, and also we've mentioned it at the school committee, and the school committee has assisted. I'm in the process of refining, redefining, and assigning responsibilities, documenting processes. My anticipation, and I wouldn't say this unless I'm just a very conservative guy, we anticipate having all of the findings addressed in whole by the end of this fiscal year. So I'm expecting no findings on the fiscal 22 audit. And again, we've got a lot of work to do. We've got a great staff that's helping me. We've made some personnel changes. We at the last school committee meeting, the school committee had approved two job descriptions, two revised job descriptions for the business office that help to that are part of this. And and again, we anticipate. I mean, I could go through the laundry list. We've made significant changes in we use our software, the type of software, implementing new functionality, documenting processes, and so on and so forth, implementing new controls. So I'm extremely confident that on the fiscal 22 audit, there will be no findings.
Once it's complete, I'm assuming Mike would get a copy of it.
Yeah, so our order of operations, as soon as, I would get it, I haven't gotten it yet, but I'm expecting to get a draft very soon. And also we'll send we have a balance sheet submission that we have to make to the state. We'll get that, certify E&D, we'll get the draft of the report. I need to present it to school committee first. And once the school committee accepts it, then I will distribute it to the towns. Absolutely.
Okay, great. Questions? Robert, Catherine, any questions?
Nope.
None from me.
The one additional question I have is just in regards to a meeting that I think is probably the first time I met you, was at the school's capital outlay committee.
Oh, yeah, it was cold that night, yeah, downstairs, yeah.
I know Robert had said you guys have had one meeting since then. Is that something that is going to be continuing with the items that are going on or need to go on at the schools?
Yes, so I'm gonna say yes in quote. So a couple of things. So specifically for the Dayton capital items regarding the campus, right? The decision is we kind of put most of them on hold, because we think we can wrap them into whatever we do for the improvements to the campus to address enrollment. And that plus you're aware that the school committee was just reorganized. We have new members in their signing committee. So it's, I just, we'll be calling a meeting for the superintendent's facilities recommendation committee, but the capital committee would be up to the school committee, not up to me to call and schedule and whatever. But I think if you've seen the meetings, and again, Doc, I think will attest, I've been a nudge about, hey, can we schedule these subcommittee meetings for both the budget and the capital? Yeah, so.
Yeah, because that is one thing that we're trying to be really upfront on is the capital, and Robert as being in charge of our capital outlay committee and being part of, at least currently as part of the member of that committee.
Right on, I agree. And again, it's keeping this line of communication open, and so we all kind of understand where each of us is at. So I wholeheartedly agree, yeah.
All right, that's the only questions I have. Thank you.
Ms. Baxter, thank you. That's the chapter 74 reimbursement. I did ask if you could.
You did, and I came prepared. So I looked into that, and I went back to our CTC director, Ms. Rose, and I asked, I said, what, so I'll be honest, right? I'm like, what the heck is chapter 74 stating? Because I haven't seen a line for chapter 74, other than the tuitions that we collect for students who come from out of district. So I wasn't sure if that's what you meant, but that's,
Well, no. Additional ed programs can be reimbursed as chapter 74 program. The program, CTE,
we have for next year.
7 in total.
Yeah, carpentry, construction, automotive, we're just about to launch, there's drafting and advanced manufacturing engineering. Mr. Hull, I did look into it. I'll own it, I got confused. I can't find a line for it right now. I need to do some more homework. So I haven't lost it. You haven't fallen through the cracks.
how many people you have in your chapter.
Yep, I understand your point. I'll continue to look into it, but I don't see it right at the moment.
Dr. Azar?
I'll bring that to the forefront. We'll have an answer for you folks ASAP.
Great.
Yeah.
I think it's just, we should thank you for 8 years of service as a
Welcome.
superintendent. It's hard to believe it's been 8 years.
No, it's a blur, a nice blur. I might say, and I just for Rob's sake, I probably should have told him that Sue Lorenz is the expert on Chapter 70. She was part and parcel, and I'm not politicizing anything, but in 2007 and 2014, the town of Dayton picked up the tab that Rehoboth should have been paying. 2014, before I became superintendent, there was a committee that was formed. And the problematic piece is that there were members of the Board of Selectmen in Rehoboth who still, to this day, thinks that the district did something nefarious, and we didn't. And in 2014-15, when I became superintendent, I was afforded the budget going forward. But then, after 3 years of reducing, because we didn't have the $1.5 million, because it was gone, because you folks didn't have to pay it anymore. Rehoboth said, we're not paying it. So we had to reduce the budget year after year for 3 years to the $5 million, which then brought me to 2018, and Catherine Antonellis and myself, I think you were on the hiring board for Catherine. That was a good pick, by the way. Catherine Antonellis and I went to the Board of Selectmen in Rehoboth in 2018, and I can guarantee you this. You look on the Rehoboth Community TV, you can write it down, 4/4/18. You will see myself and Catherine Antonellis explain to the Rehoboth Board Finance Committee, which is led by 2 Board of Selectmen people today, that we shared with them, we need an override of $1.25 million. We need it, we're being transparent. So sure enough, what we were looking for was a meeting, give us the opportunity to put it to a vote. And it did go out to a vote, but it wasn't 1.25 million, it was 2.1 million. It was $900,000. Rehoboth municipality took 900 grand of their deficit, put it onto our override, and they never took credit for it. Why would they? So sure enough, thinking that the school department will get an override. So in the summer of 2018, we had an election, over almost 50% of the election amount to vote on July 17th, and the override passed, 2,200 to 1,700. Thereafter, we've been battling through 2 lawsuits because something's wrong. Where's the money going? Which is, when you folks have been trying to okay, we know where the money's going because we've been presenting for the last 4 years and now 8 years. And at the last Board of Selectmen meeting, they still want to know, Mr. Dignan says, we don't know where the money is. We don't know where it's going. Take a look at your lawsuit. It's still in court. It's just a mind-boggling situation, but I will tell you this. And when I shared with one of those councilmen before, I'm still standing. I know the story, and I will continue to share the story until somebody tells me, okay, you're all set, Dr. Azar, you can move on. And I'll do that for you right now. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Azar.
Good luck.
Ready whenever you.
I assure you.
Here we go.
Thank you for, again, good evening, and thank you for having us, and thank you for that wonderful introduction. Mr. Azar, with me today, I have my business administrator, does a wonderful job with the budget, and because we're constantly being challenged to put a budget together that's under a minimum contribution. And this year's not any different. So let's get right to it and look at the budget. As for the FY 2023 budget, the overall increase is 4.5% from prior year, and it's $27,935,628,000. Dayton's assessment for FY '23 is $1,081,809. And that's basically a 2% increase from last year. The assessment includes regional transportation. The assessment, also the capital assessment, that's on your page 3. You'll notice on page 3, we have all our towns and how they're all broken up on the Schedule 3 handout. And that's and it's student, actually, who was our financial person that was always here all these years? Schwartz, Ed Schwartz. Ed Schwartz would have been proud this year because this is the first year that there's a -2 students from last year. Because he's always said, why are we taking more students? And students make up is 76% of Bristol Plymouth. And so that's where we are with that budget. If anyone has any questions.
That was going to be my first question. Where are we on the numbers right now?
No.
Numbers from Dayton?
Student numbers in Dayton, so 103.
Down 2 from.
2 from last year, correct. And the year before that we had an additional 20, so, seems to kind of stabilize. And we did have one year, FY '22 was like the big jump, and I think you kind of mentioned it, that was that 20, we ended up getting an additional 20 students in FY '22. And prior to that was all single digits.
Questions on the BP?
In the one line item, so.
So the large, the 20 increase, those students would be sophomores this year?
22, we
Based
did
on- So this is based on October of '21
numbers, yeah.
That's how DESI works.
Okay.
So they are sophomores.
It would be, yeah, sophomores.
A year at about roughly 20 students for Dayton, for freshman, junior, senior class.
Hard to tell, I mean, they just, I wish I would check to see what you have this year, acceptance, but again, we can't go by acceptances either because some students just don't show up, so we won't know the numbers until October 1st when they shut down the numbers.
You have a rough idea what the seniors and juniors would be right now?
As far as Dayton numbers,
Yes.
I don't.
Well, we have the amount. So if you want to, you can.
Yeah, but it doesn't show the, how many, is because someone already dropped out.
Yeah.
We just know, we just got a total of numbers
We
as
have
far as.
total numbers.
We have it.
Okay.
Since you joined Bristol Plymouth.
Okay.
We have it from FY '16 all the way down to FY '23 when you guys joined in FY '15, but for FY '16 was the numbers that continue adding up. And I can go over them really quickly if you don't have them with you. And it started off, the school year started off with 19 students. FY '17 was 6 students. FY '18, it jumped to 22. And FY '19 with 9 students. FY '20 was an additional 2 students.
Alex,
Oh, no,
left side. That was the change, this side, the left side.
I don't have that one. So.
Yeah, right here.
Okay, those are the additions.
Yeah, those are just the changes each year.
Okay, I see, yeah. Yeah, FY '15, we started with 18 students, then it jumped to 37 students. On FY '17, it jumped to 43. FY '18, 65. FY '19, 74. FY '20, 76. FY '21, 85. FY '22, 105. And FY '23 is 103. There's your -2.
Okay.
So Ed Schwartz would be happy this year.
It's fairly, it didn't change all that much except for the one year that jumped, but overall.
Yeah.
Once we hit four.
Because it was pretty stable between 9 to 2 students, and all of a sudden 1 year just jumped up to 20. And,
Robert, Catherine?
No other questions for me.
I'm all set.
Just for the sake of Ed, if we could bring it down to 80, that would be great.
Well, just so this board knows, tomorrow night, the school committee is going to be voting on a town that wants to come into the district, which this is the town of Freetown. And, as you know, we're going into a building that increased by 100 students than what we have now. Just putting out there that there's going to be she's probably going to go to selectmen first, or I'm not sure how it works, because we haven't done this. When you guys came in, it was a different method, because you had signed the agreement, and Freetown's coming in as a new, and so it's going to go out to all the communities, and they vote whether they want them to be part of the district, including Freetown. Their town has to also vote, so you'll see that coming within the next, I don't know, a couple of months, I guess, when I'm sure, still work with Dusty when that goes up. So just so you're aware of as far as what's coming ahead.
As a school, their town's probably fairly similar in size, maybe a little larger than us.
I kind of equate them with like Berkeley. Yeah, I mean.
Larger.
Yeah, kind of when they were asking the assessments, we kind of started, so we don't have anything to go by. We kind of looked at the Berkeley numbers, and so they're looking at that. It's kind of.
They can take our 20.
It can only help.
Right.
And I appreciate what Dr. Azad mentioned. We do work together. We've worked with their CT program coordinator to look at programs that they can build and so forth, so that we're not competing, but also in support. We want to, when we feel we're part of your community as well, right? And anything we can do to help them, we'll provide the resources and knowledge and build their programs as well. So we're not competing.
You say Freetown is looking to join, and what does that mean for the other member towns? Just for anybody listening, does that affect us in any way?
Well, right now, it doesn't affect it, just the same way you didn't affect other towns. It just, you might be taking more slots. And when you guys came, you took more slots from other towns per se. But so in a sense, they'll probably pay some of the budget, they're going to be responsible for the.
So it will affect some of the assessments?
Yeah, it may affect, because they're going to have some skin in the game too. They're going to be assessed.
And they'll have a piece of the debt.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Will it have an effect on?
Not sure about the assessment, it's only going to go by the percentage. So if your numbers went down, because it only goes by percentage, so it could potentially affect, yeah. I mean, an answer, but I don't know what the number.
Another school.
Yeah, right.
We'll take on some of the things.
So but what's hard to say is, it's hard to say is, they may be able to fill 100 slots, but all of a sudden I get 20 from, an extra 20 from Dayton, but 20 from Middleborough just dropped. You know what I mean? It's hard to say what the numbers would be. It fluctuates. I can't tell. Some years we have more tonsils, other years we don't have as many, other years we have more Middleborough, whatever. It just fluctuates, so it's hard to tell, but there'll be another town involved, and yeah, the wealth will be spread. So just so.
So just on top of that, I just want to piggyback on that. So the roughly $800,000 debt assessment, that is based out for the next 30 years, essentially. That is based on our percentage of enrollment staying the same. So
Every year that enrollment fluctuates. So your debt assessment will be based
On your enrollment, very similar to the way we do it now.
But the estimate,
Yeah, for the estimate, yeah.
So the $800,000 anticipated schedule, that was a very static number, where in reality, that could be volatile based on enrollment.
yeah,
Yes.
that number's going to change every year.
Yeah,
That's what I mean.
not a whole lot, because your enrollment's not gonna jump from 103 to 500 kids.
Yeah, yeah.
It's going to change, like we showed you here, sometimes you're going to have 9, other years you're going to have 20 more, sometimes less.
Well, that makes sense.
I think you're at 7.6% right
Yes.
now. That was based on October, I think, October of 2020, when we did it. So I think it even went down
Okay,
with those less students.
thank you.
You guys are expecting an increase of 100 students, but that's not until the project is complete.
No, that won't, we can't.
Yeah, we can't
We can't
possibly
fit-
fit
Yeah,
one more student.
and would
That
that,
wouldn't even start till, even FY '26. I'm not sure if we're going to grab all 100, you know what I mean?
that was my next question. So Bristol Aggie's going to be doing it in a
Yeah, I'm not sure, because we can't just,
incremental.
because we've got to bring all, staff. First of all, we can't bring in anybody from the junior, senior year anyway, because they've lost too much.
Yeah,
So if anything happens, it's usually a freshman. Sometimes we have some fill-in with sophomores because they can catch up still in sophomore year. After junior year, we don't take any more students, junior, senior year. So, right, it wouldn't be me taking, otherwise, if I take that, then, it doesn't balance
yeah,
teacher staff.
really 29, 30 before you're going to be at the full.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good.
You're from Conservation?
No.
Next is 171, Conservation.
It's pretty straightforward, Mr. Chairman.
Is the Conservation Secretary, is that a shared?
That is actually the clerk of the Conservation Commission.
Okay.
In the secretarial position?
Yes.
Any questions on 171?
Yeah, Pete, I have a question. I think this is probably more for Janelle, though. Line 5158. Why is that not split out into two different line items like most of the other budgets?
So yes.
If you prefer.
So this budget, because of the relatively new funding of conservation agent, like we're still, this budget has been being built by the Concom, but yeah, as the Concom mentioned, Mr. Rendon, do what you're asking for.
Okay, thank you.
Is there anything on Conservation? No.
I just have one question. The professional and technical, looks like you've shoved in for a real reduction, so.
That was a project-specific increase.
Okay.
That was needed in FY '22. That's no longer needed.
Thank you.
Sue, any questions on Conservation? Okay, we'll move on to Parks and Rec. Uh, 6:30.
And I believe the chairman of Parks.
Good evening.
How are you?
Good, how are you?
Good.
So overall, we're asking for level funding in the amount of 20,700. One thing that we did do, or we would like to do, is shift line item 5240, we decreased by $1,800, and then we want to move that over to 5350, which is recreational supplies, but recreational supply really encompasses like our events. So we wanted to take a little bit out of our maintenance budget and move it to there so we could do some more, put more towards, events, community outreach events and things of that nature, so.
I ask what types of events?
Well, like, for instance, we're gonna do the Firecracker Festival again this year, so we wanted to grow that a little bit, because we did that really on like a shoestring budget last year. And then just adding more activities. So instead of, just strictly maintaining the parks, like bringing in other types of activities, whether it be like a sports, being able to support, like if we wanted to do a sports clinic, now that we have a new commission member, we're starting to move towards creating more events of that nature than really, just concentrating on, your everyday maintenance issues.
Any issues with the Board of Selectmen and a TA both recommended just cutting 250 out of professional technical and additional supplies and equipment?
So both of those items, like we don't have, I was okay, and then we voted on this about 3 meetings ago. Those are 2 items that we typically don't use. We don't have a ton of professional and technical or additional supplies. We might just have some random office supplies. We've even spoke as far as professional and technical. We're talking about maybe getting some shirts made, so when we do have an event, we're represented, in some way like that. But yeah, no, we were perfectly okay with reducing those 2 line items to 250.
Do you have plans on the repairs and maintenance for next year? Or is there certain things that you want to get done?
It's kind of like ever evolving, because it seems to be that, we're replacing things as they break. We still have, some fencing issues. There are some things, well, the North Dayton Playground project, if that passes at annual town meeting, that we have certain contributions that we were going to make from that budget to support that project as well. Don't have anything, it's kind of just our general maintenance. The one thing is, it's like if a slide breaks, we're talking about,
Yeah, okay.
several $1,000 object. Even the fencing last year, just to give an example, we had 2 fencing projects that were, both in the neighborhood of $5,000 each. So besides like our general, like our porta potty services and things like that, when we have to make a repair, it's usually a pretty significant cost.
Okay, yeah, so it's like a slide breaks, you got to repair it.
Right.
Yeah, or replace, either way.
Yeah.
So Parks and Recreation, do you just take care of the equipment at the parks and the grounds and everything must be under highway, or?
Yes, correct.
Okay.
But so if there's a material needed, like say for instance, one of the ball fields, if it needs new stone dust, we actually will purchase the stone dust, but the highway department would provide the labor and put it down.
Just at the North Dayton field.
Right, yeah, because this field is under the control of the Board of Selectmen, so that's its whole separate entity.
Okay.
But, and even just like our parking areas, like Tricentennial is a clamshell, so like we would purchase clamshells to rejuvenate that parking area, but the highway department would do the physical work.
Okay.
Questions for Parks and Rec?
No.
Robert, Catherine, any questions?
No.
Thank you. How are you, Woody?
Good evening.
You guys have any plans on big projects this year?
No, we don't. We don't have any money.
That makes it easy.
Right. We did a study, and to extend the sewer down to Hart Street would be $22 million. So told Chairman of the Board of Selectmen, come to our meeting with a check for 22 million, we'll put it in. You know, they keep promising, you know, all these politicians are gonna give us this money. They're really not. No. Just looking for votes. Everything's good. You know, we're self-sufficient. We're an enterprise system. The town of Dayton pays for none of anything in the sewer department.
So all the receipts.
Yeah, all the money that we get from the ratepayers. The town of Dayton does not give the sewer commission any money at all. So just the money that we use to operate comes from the ratepayers. Does not come from the taxpayers. But for some reason, the whole town gets to vote on it. And that's because maybe, what, 25, 30 years ago, the state made the town put sewerage in North Dayton. So the town had to take out a loan to pay for that. So once that was paid off, the ratepayers were responsible for paying the full operation of the enterprise system. So seeing the town had, you know, if we wanted to extend the sewer lines, we could borrow 22 million. But I don't think the town is in, you know. Yeah, they're not in a position to put out that kind of money right now.
How, where, like you said, you guys set the rates and the rates cover the expenses. I mean, we know expenses are fairly, they don't change much year to year for the most part.
Right, but we have a lot of maintenance that we have to do on the pump stations. We have a bunch of pump stations, one we're doing over now up at the power plant. And we have to have additional pumps on hand, grinders, just in case a pump breaks down, we have to have one on hand.
Yeah.
So those kind of things. Our superintendent has a truck that's about 100 years old. And you see, we only budget $750 for that truck because he hardly uses it. So we would like to get a new truck in the future. It's part of our 5-year plan, I guess. But yeah, within the next 5 years, he's going to have to buy a new truck because it's kind of falling apart around him, you know.
Are you guys seeing any issues with getting pumps, getting parts for pumps?
The wait time on these things, you know, because of the supply chain has been testing, I'll say. But right now we have extra pumps in all the pump stations. And we're looking pretty good.
Okay.
You know, we're trying to stay on top of that. You know, Harold Garcia is the superintendent and he does a great job.
Good.
Yeah.
Thank you for explaining the enterprise to our new members as well.
Yeah, how you doing, sir? What's your name?
David Carpenter.
David Carpenter, nice to meet you, sir.
Nice to meet you.
I know you. Yeah, nice to meet you. I was wondering who you were. Yeah, you know, you get that mask on.
Yeah, I've been around some sick people in the last couple of days. I don't want to spread it.
Yeah, I was in quarantine myself last week, so my wife came down with it.
Yeah, you sound like your breathing's a little.
Yeah, well, I have COPD and emphysema, you know.
Take care of yourself, Woody.
Yeah. So I hope you guys really consider.
Robert, Catherine, anything for Woody?
No.
At this time.
Good.
Good to go, thank you.
Thank you, Woody.
You're welcome. Oh, I have one thing. You didn't put on any of your agendas public input. I know that's the discretion of the chair.
Yeah, and
And Mr. Swartz has always recognized the public,
yep,
and I don't know whether or not it was your preference not to.
nope.
And I don't know if you noticed, but I have been zooming into all your meetings.
I mean, my personal opinion is that public inputs should be in every meeting. So even if it's not in the minutes, I would always take it. But one thing I will admit that I am not good at is looking over to the left, to the right, to the screen.
Okay.
The only reason that I'm doing it tonight is because we've got two members who are at home.
All right.
But
Well, I've been home watching you.
if you have any questions, I don't know if you can reach anybody in the meeting, because I would be more than happy to take it.
Right. No, and you're doing a fine job, and I appreciate it. Really do. I always said that year after year, but,
Yeah, public input should be at any meeting.
yeah, you can put that on your agenda, whoever does your agenda. Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Right, Historical Commission, do we have anyone?
We decided we're not going to do our budget without us this year.
Thank you.
I'm Pat Gales, by the way, and I'm the chairperson,
Nice to meet you, Pat. Peter Roach.
so.
I mean, you might as well just go over some of the increases for this year.
Our increase is $600, and that's under the professional and technical. That's for, to add a historical overlay GIS map update. This year, we're doing a community-wide survey update for our historical properties, and we had a grant from the Mass Historical Commission and from the CPC to fund that. And that'll be over in June. And part of that project, we're getting a whole system on the GIS mapping for an overlay that will mark all of the historical properties that have been identified. So in anticipation of continuing our project, because CPC also approved for the warrant, another $25,000 grant from them to continue the survey update for Mount Hope and Lincoln Village, not Lincoln Village, the village, the North Dayton Village area, because that's a significant historic resource that we have in town. And what the update does is it allows us to identify our historical properties with documentation and sources, so that these properties could be, or like the National Register, it adds to our community, our culture of our community. So the increase is basically to continue the project. Once the mapping is in place, the GIS mapping from this year, then there's a fee to add on for any more properties that we can, that we do in FY23. So we anticipate it would probably be about another 90 to 100 properties that would be done.
Okay, so that increases per property cost on the GIS.
Yeah, that's what the cost, the quote was, that it would be to update.
Okay. So it's more like a software cost?
It's a software cost, and there will be a hard copy map too provided. Yeah.
Okay.
Got a grant?
This year, we got a grant to do this project for FY22 from the Mass Historical Commission. And it's a matching grant, so CPC fronted the $25,000. In June, once all of our paperwork is in, the Mass Historical Commission will reimburse that CPC money to $12,500, so it'll come back to the town. We also wrote a grant for FY23 to do the same thing, but they turned us down. And basically, their reasoning was that they don't usually give back-to-back grants to communities because it's highly competitive, and to spread the money around to the different communities in the state. But the commission and myself felt that if you don't ask for the money, then they're not going to say no, because what if not enough communities, applied and there was extra money there, so we wanted to make sure that we were in the running for it. And knowing that they probably weren't going to support us. Luckily, the CPC is supporting us, so. Yeah.
So that's for 23?
Yeah. And the warrant article for the request for FY23 is already written and is on the warrant, so.
Okay. To be funded through CPC?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Robert, Catherine, any questions?
Nope.
None.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Town historian, we have,
Yeah. The request this year of $250.
who is our town historian?
That is Mona Santos.
Okay. Any questions?
I think that's good.
Any questions, Robert, Catherine?
No.
Nope.
That ends the departments for tonight. Do we want to review the warrant articles tonight, like, or hold that off until?
One thing I just will mention, just quickly, Mr. Chairman, the budget document has been updated to reflect the financial articles. The articles that were just mentioned, to the articles that have been recommended forward by the Capital Outlay Committee as well. And so as I mentioned earlier, I will send along the capital outlay recommendations in advance of do that first thing tomorrow. So both the Board of Selectmen and the FinCom can have those as backup. But just generally speaking, with from the October free cash certification, we have $1.7 million certified. At the special town meeting appropriated a total of $1.3 million of that 1.7. About $900,000 was into stabilization, OPEB to reduce the tax rate. We did. There were at the special town meeting in November 420,000. Then leaving a remaining balance in the free cash balance at this point of $424,000. You'll note, as I mentioned at the beginning of the budget process, that the budget itself does include $129,000 in one-time retirement payouts. It's on the excess funding capacity. The recommendation, like at this point, up until this process, has been to fund a one-time cost with free cash allotment. So when we apply that 129, I believe, against the 424, that brings our available free cash down to $296,000, which understandably makes our ability to fund. Like at the annual town meeting, a lot of the capital outlay recommended priorities. So I'll make some initial recommendations here, just really so we can really together start a conversation over the next week with different scenarios, and then really be based on October 22, our certified free cash allotment, which at this point we do, as we heard from the schools, have reason to believe have a more enhanced ability to look at other things. But so I just wanted to provide that context. But if you'd like, I just wanted to provide that this as a jumping off point for a further discussion. It's okay.
You guys see that? Okay, good.
That's good, thank you. That's okay. So I just really to be, so just my very initial recommendations, and again, this is a collaborative process. But in terms of the capital outlay recommendation, this recommendation has proposed funding the purchase of the roll-off containers that were mentioned by the health agent at $12,000. Seal coating the police station parking lot at $5,000, and replacing the Williams and Old William Street guardrail at $43,000 under raise and appropriate. And also we have the third and final year of the street sweeper, which is something we need to do. We also have an F-750 at the highway department that is literally falling apart right now. There's a very significant need to deal with that. But just those two items alone take us, actually to $75,000. And we'd like to have somewhat of a carryover, so year to year. And so this envisions that. In terms of the other priorities, this is where the town accountant does not like me. In terms of the other priorities that have other funding sources, we have the CPC funding articles. I'm just gonna actually move this. There we go. We have the CPC funding articles that have dedicated funding sources. We have the proposed first year of a 3-year lease payment for an ambulance that could be funded out of the ambulance account, the ambulance fund. We have a library feasibility / capital cost article in the amount of $150,000, which we propose to be funded out of our capital stabilization, which currently has a balance of $985,000. And then, as you heard from the school district of Dayton share of the school district's E&D turnback, they are requesting $150,000 of that for the enrollment feasibility study.
Just for my memory, fall at Special Town, we didn't approve any money towards the study at DMS, DES?
No.
Did we tabled that? Yeah, I know the school didn't want it.
Yes. So the other ability that we anticipate having at the special town meeting, because in my view, all this is interrelated. There have been in recent years a few articles that we have that we received grant funding to accomplish. The Trails feasibility study is one of those articles, just as an example. So that's $40,000 as we prepare to close out the fiscal. We propose to close out the fiscal year. We can plan on closing those articles out as well. So that funding will be turned back as well.
Okay.
Excuse me, did you say that was the Trails feasibility study?
Yeah, the Trails feasibility study, they got a grant, a really good grant to do that. So that funding, just as an example, can be turned back.
Okay. Questions on preliminary?
No.
Robert, Catherine, any questions on, or Robert, if you even want to speak to any?
No, I don't feel that there's a need to speak to any of this tonight.
Okay.
I think we get down to our heart-to-heart discussions around these particular items in line with what the total budget is going to look like. There could be some decisions made.
Catherine?
Nope, I'm all set.
Okay. Anything else, Mike?
That is all I have tonight. Thank you.
The next thing on our agenda is approval of the 426 minutes. Everyone had a chance to go through the 426 minutes?
Yeah.
Any questions on them?
I did have one note that I wanted to make. I just gotta find out of the many windows that I have open where it is. Shoot. Here we go. So it was down in, oh, where was it? It's down, so it was listed under public buildings and properties maintenance, which is the version I'm looking at is outline letter Z. And it's the first point being made there. Says we underfunded previously this line item. Underfunded previously, this line item includes new modular building costs for library needs. I think that can be misconstrued to mean we need a new modular building. And the fact of the matter is that it's for an additional payment on the modular that is on the site today.
Additional, yeah.
This line item includes payment on existing modular building costs for library needs.
Yes.
Take a motion to accept with the change.
Second.
The motion.
I'll make a motion that we accept the changes to the minutes as described by.
Robert Rendon, I second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Public input.
I'm gonna hop on the stipend again. Should have said something while the school people were here. But she's familiar. She's been on the school committee for a while. There are a lot of people in the school system that also receive stipends.
Yes.
I'm just saying.
Yeah.
There are people in the school committee or school system that receive stipends also. So I'm not here to advocate for anyone else, other than my own department. And it's not my job to stick up for everybody else. But, like being on the planning board, we're overloaded with work. Okay, we got solar farms coming at us left and right. It's nonstop, right? We had the Aggie school. Additional duties, one of them is stormwater. I don't know if you're familiar how long these stormwater meetings last. They go on for hours. Okay, CPC, we have to send a member to that. Serpent representative, we have to send a member to that. These are just additional duties above and beyond, what we're elected to do. And we're not complaining, we're not asking for much, but, even the other boards and committees that get small stipends, they're doing a lot of work.
School committee that gets nothing.
Well, the school committee gets nothing, but they've never asked for anything.
It's the two-town agreement. It's the district agreement that's in there.
Well, it's funny you say that because conservation said that for years too, right? So I'm on conservation. We do this for nothing. Okay, but now they get something too. So, if you're not going to say anything about it, you're not going to get nothing. But I'm here to ask for a lousy 2%. Not just from my committee, you know. I would hope that you could give it to the rest, but I'm not, you know, if you don't want to give it to us, that's fine, because I can stand up at town floor and ask for however many percent I want. And I'll probably get it, because, you know, you've been here before. I stood up, I was the only department to stand up and ask for a raise, and we got it. That was like 3 or 4 years ago. So, you know, I don't want to have to do that again. Prolong the meeting will go on all night long, you know.
You mentioned one word that I just wanted to ask, as the selectmen are going to be drawing up a policy on it. Do you differentiate between elected and appointed, or complete volunteer boards? Or are you saying?
Yeah, I'm just worrying about my own department. I'm not really worried about the $43, but it would just be nice.
But if you were looking at a policy, would you look at a policy differently for elected versus non-elected?
No, I would say anyone receiving a stipend, no matter what it is or what it is for, you know, they're devoting their time and their energy. You know, they're using their own computers. Like, I can't tell you how much stuff is on my phone and in my computer from being on the planning board and sewer, right? My ink and my printer is always going dry. You know, that all comes out of my pocket. You know, and I'm getting, you would not believe it, you know, and I thought about bringing it here, because my wife's always complaining about all this paperwork I bring home and leave on the kitchen table and then walk away, right? So she puts it in these little boxes for me, you know, and with my breathing condition, I couldn't carry it in here. That's how heavy it is, okay? I mean, I get piles of paperwork. You wouldn't believe the money the town's wasted on paper, you know? That's all I have, but I really wish that, you know, you guys could consider taking care of the little people for once. You know, you were at Park and Rec, right? You asked the guy from Park and Rec more questions than you asked the school committee. Or the people from the school, the superintendent. You know?
We did have our meeting with the DR already back on the 24th.
Yeah, I mean,
March 24th.
Huge.
Yeah, we went through that budget.
I'm talking millions.
Yeah.
Over here, I'm talking about a few dollars.
43.
$43.
No, 43 million. It just
43
coincides
million,
with.
right? I want $43. They want 43 million. You know, it would be easy for me to stand up at town meeting and reduce their budget by $1 million. People would vote for that, right? Then they'd have to come running back to you like they did at the assessors, looking for that $8,000 for their, you know, what they wanted it for an appraiser. You know.
So Woody, I have a question for you. Does length of service have anything to do with it as well? Or do you feel that somebody who's been on the planning board for 10 years, who's got a stipend, who has a stipend, let's say they started, and I don't even know the numbers, but say they started at $2,000 a year, they've been there for 10 years, they're up to, let's say, $2,200 per year. Should a brand new planning board member come in at $2,200?
I think
they don't have any knowledge of how to do the job.
There's nobody on the planning board making close to $2,000 a year. I think there's like maybe 1,400.
Again, Woody, I just throw out a random number.
Would you?
Well, it's an elected position, so you'd have to give them what everybody else gets. Now, maybe an appointed position may be a little different, but, you know, it depends. You know, who they like, right? I'm not going to throw anybody under the bus here, but, you know, there have been some appointed officials getting paid a lot more than planning board people. You know, and they're appointed. They're not elected. So it depends who's doing the appointing and how much they like you.
So what you're saying, Woody, is that a policy that does get established, that we can then follow, provides those guardrails to prevent any sort of
question,
quote unquote, favoritism.
Yeah.
Right, there you go. You know, and when they create a new position, then they have to set a pay, you know, or a stipend. So, you know, that's up to the 3 selectmen, you know, where they want to go with that. But, you know, we're not asking for a lot. I guess right now, I'm advocating for everybody, board or committee, who's getting a small stipend. Yeah, I don't know of anybody getting a huge stipend. Do you know of anybody, Mike? No, it's chump change, right? And I feel like the little guys, like Park and Rec, I was on Park and Rec for 9 years, right? Every single year we got beat up over a few lousy dollars. Like you asked about the maintenance, right? At one time, we used to have a maintenance contract with a landscaper.
Yeah.
So then Tom Ferry decided, he could do it if he could have 12,000 of our dollars. So we said, okay, we'll give you 12,000. And that was maybe 15 years ago. So he's probably losing money on that deal now. But back then, because, I don't know what the contract would be now, but,
Yeah, I think.
15 years ago, we were paying a landscaping company 12,000 to take care of all the parks.
Yeah, it's 24 to 27, somewhere around there, if I remember.
Yeah. But, I'm sure these guys can whip something up real.
Mowing contract, the new mowing contract.
A policy, yeah. I mean, you got
You?
me,
Yes.
be more than glad to sit down with you.
Subcommittee?
Sure,
Absolutely.
let's get it done before, like next week. Let's get it done. How hard can it be?
Woody, I appreciate you and your
I
opinion.
appreciate you guys too. I really do. You know that.
Everyone that does any work for the town, and like you said, public input is a great.
Right now, we have no one on the planning board attending stormwater meetings. And nobody wants to do it. And they all keep looking at me. And I say, well, that hinges on my 2%. Right? Because I'm not going to sit over here, I guess they have the meetings here, for 3 hours. One of them was 4 hours. Now, and sitting at the table over there, and I'm pointing at you people, but there's like 4 or 5 people sitting there making over $40 an hour. And the guy from the planning board sitting right next to him, making this. That ain't right. Right? Making this. And then, of course, Mrs. Goulat, she's the chairman of it. She makes this too. But everybody else in the room is making over $40 an hour. That ain't right. That is not right. Jesus. I think a representative from the planning board sitting on stormwater, they should get a $2,000 stipend. But I'm not asking for that. Really? A lot of time. 3 hours. Crazy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I'd
Brandon?
like to make one comment to what Mr. Woods mentioned earlier about the cost of BP and the fact that it was well over $100 million difference. I'm looking at the BP site right now. The no vote would have cost us would have cost the entire project $137 million in repairs. A yes vote costs $305 million, of which $125 million is being funded by the state as grant money or funding assistance, as they call it, which means the district share is $180 million. So $180 million from taking out the $137 million is a total of $43 million, not well over $100 million, as Mr. Wood stated earlier.
I voted yes, by the way.
Did you hear that?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
And I'll say this too, Mr. Woods, so did I.
Any other questions or comments?
No.
Feeling none, we'll take a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion to adjourn?
I second.
All in favor?
Aye?
Aye.
Opposed? We'll turn it back to the Board of Selectmen.
I will entertain a motion. Aye. Chief? Aye. Chairman?
Thank you.
Thank you.